Serocs with And When the Sky Was Opened. A little bit of local flavor, multinational flavor, nation flavor. Best flavor of ice cream, nation flavor. Josh Smith, the vocalist of this group, is a member of the coverkillernation. He's a great guy, and this multinational group is as such, considering it has membership from other countries such as Mexico, Canada, United States, and it's one that necessarily was accumulated and crafted without necessarily having to be in the same spot as one another. So I'm sure that the sessions that were spent on Skype were a bit crazy. But at any rate, we have to talk about this disc. Serocs is a band that has been around now for a couple of years. However, this version of it is fairly new. And the style of music that they were employing prior to this was more attuned to brutal death metal with a little bit of a technical edge to it. But this album, they kind of go above and beyond that and embrace more of that technical side. And it's something that, from face value, whenever you just look at the tracks and look at the track lengths, you can definitely tell that's true. Considering there's a portion right there in the middle, tracks 4 through 6, which stare at you with a familiar glow whenever you take a look at When the Ground Swallows Us with its 8-minute runtime, its ellipsis with a short runtime that goes right into And When the Sky Was Opened with its 7+ minute runtime. Strikes you as familiar, strikes you as something that has been quite successful for a couple of bands throughout the past couple of years, including The Faceless and Sanhedrin. This band reminds me of Sanhedrin a good bit, although Sanhedrin was a little more geared toward traditional death metal instead of brutal death metal, but then transitioned into a little bit more of a technical front with their last EP. So what can we take away from this album? This album that was just released. This album that may be in FYEs or music stores. If not, you should seek out the band. Check out their online social media, either that or their record label's website, and you'll be able to get yourself a copy of this. And these guys have also been getting some attention. Metal Injection has posted a stream of the entire album, which I have linked in the description box, because I'm sure most of you have thought, who the fuck is that? Well, believe you me, you're going to want to know who these guys are, especially if you're a fan of death metal or a fan of technical death metal, especially if you're a fan of brutal death metal. If you're just a fan of death metal in general or heavy metal music in general, you're going to want to check these guys out, give them a try, and realize that they're really good. What makes them so good, though? I'll tell you exactly what it is. This multinational flavor is really spotlit by their Mexican guitar player, and he's a fantastic driving force in this group, and he's one that maintains his own personality without going too far, really from one spectrum to the next. He's able to control his composition very nicely, and whenever he wants to dive into a more technical side, if he wants to dive into something with a little bit more of a soft touch or a soft edge, he's able to introduce this idea very nicely. It's not something that's jarring. It's not a jarring experience whatsoever. It's instead something that feels very smooth. In fact, the whole album has this feeling of smoothness to it, even though it's a rugged death metal beast. And that smoothness is just the overall way in which this album flows. It's a disc that really doesn't need to do much in order to veer off pace, and it stays true to itself. It's not an album that is trying to really decimate eardrums or redefine the genre in any way, shape, or form. This is a group instead that's just playing the music that it loves. And you can hear that with And So It Begins, the very first track on this disc, and flowing right into Solitude. These are tracks that just blister through you. They steamroll and blitzkrieg you. And it's really accented not only by the guitar work, the thick bass that combines nicely with the drum work, but Josh Smith's vocals. At times, these vocals are so low that in order to not overburden the mix, they're actually a little softer in the mix as opposed to being amplified up with the remainder of the composition, which I thought was a nice touch and a good decision. It's a great choice considering you don't want to have one side really overburden the rest and kind of leave absent some of the key portions of this album. So it's a nice little sacrifice that may not have even been intended, may not even be all of that big of a thrill. Might just be something that my ear has picked up and my ear has heard, but either way, I really like that touch. But I have to talk about this 3-song cycle, and, When the Ground Swallows Us into Ellipsis, into And When the Sky Was Opened. This is 16 minutes of the album, roughly, which is only 36 minutes, so it's roughly half of it. And this is almost like an audition. It's an audition, a demo tape. It's something that is really meant to grab the attention of the listener and make sure that the name Serocs is remembered. So think of this just like an audition or a demo tape. Think of it as Serocs doing what they need to do in order to perhaps be accepted by a wider swath of the heavy metal universe, which they shouldn't need to do. But in this day and age, you kind of have to paint yourself a reputation. And this is a reputation that the band can certainly be proud of. Like a group like Sanhedrin, which was so widely accepted by members of the nation whenever we talked about their last EP, and Into the Eternal Nether of Lost and Stricken Souls, which did a similar idea such as this, only with a bit more length. This commands your attention. This looks at you and says, pay attention to me. And the sound that accompanies it steamrolls and barrages you. And it's one that does so by commanding that attention. It does not get monotonous. It does not lacklusterly dattle on. Instead, it's one that is able to remain focused. It is able to not get trapped in that idea of overindulgence or that idea of trying to do too much. Once again, the band remains true to their roots. Once again, the band decides to push the envelope a little bit with the technicality, and it works. And it works. The gap-bridging 33-second ellipsis, that is a tremendous idea. It bridged the two parts together and does so that whenever the eargasm assault of the title track on this disc begins, it's not something that feels really disconnected or disjointed. It's instead very, very nicely tied together. It's almost like that 33 seconds, that soft 33 seconds, is the ribbon on top of the heavy metal present. Moving into tracks such as Them and For Nothing, it's hard to really top something that just happened that was to this magnitude. But somehow they do it. Somehow they find a way to craft these tracks with enough focus, with enough energy, with a thick bass, the low vocals, the guttural vocals, great guitar work, and still maintain interest. The flow on this album is great. I mean, that's one thing that can certainly be ascertained. I think this is still an album and a band that is only going to have a pretty core base of folks that are going to love the piss out of them. This isn't going to be one that the casual Korn fan's going to listen to and immediately want to jerk off to. But it's instead one that may introduce them to a more brutal underground side of metal. So they may get a couple of fans there. 86 out of 100. This is a great disc. This is one that's really going to go by the wayside, unfortunately, unless we get the name out there. We got to get this name out there. That's kind of our partial responsibility. So check out the stream below. Someone just checked them out. They're being taken to the hospital. It's that good. Check out the stream below. Check out the album. If it's at your local store, pick it up. If not, go to their record label's website, which I'll pop in the description below again. Give this band some love, man. They deserve it. What do you guys think about this disc? For those of you who have already checked it out, let me know in the comments. coverkillernation, Serocs, Josh Smith, you're an awesome dude, brother. Thanks. I'll have a good one.